We're going to start our questioning looking at one of the biggest policing events that has of recent years, possibly the biggest ever, which is the policing of the coronation. And of course, as a committee, we give our congratulations to the police for a safe and well-run event. We do also have some questions about the policing of the coronation. So I'd like to just start with the Deputy Mayor, Sophie Linden, by asking if you believe that the Met policed the coronation of His Majesty the King and Her Majesty Queen Consort in a proportionate manner in line with relevant legislation, and if you could also say why you think that.
Thank you very much. I think we should straight away acknowledge that it's, you know, the coronation it was just such a huge event for the Metropolitan Police to police, to keep safe, to make sure it ran smoothly. The amount of planning and really attention to detail that it took, and to congratulate the Metropolitan Police for actually on the day, and as I'm sure we all watched, a fabulous coronation that in the main were passed off incredibly smoothly. I know, and you know, that we had concerns over a small number of arrests that took place on the day. The Mayor did write to the Commissioner about those arrests, seeking answers to questions around the use of legislation, the arrest of the Night Stars who were working in Westminster, and we have had a response from the Commissioner around that. So in relation to those particular issues around the arrest, we were concerned about that, and I know that the Metropolitan Police are undertaking a review of the overall operation of the police on that day, which will also include those arrests, and we're looking forward to the outcome of that review and being able to assess and assure ourselves around that review. And the Mayor has also asked that the high-level conclusions of that review are made public, because it's really important in terms of transparency and accountability that where there is that public interest concern, that there is the public can see what the review has come up with, and if lessons need to be learned, they are learned. I'm very keen to stress that is the high-level conclusions. It won't be. We're not asking for the whole report to be published, the whole review to be published, because there will be operational matters in that wouldn't be appropriate to be published. So we absolutely accept that, but we would like to see the high-level conclusions published so that the public can see that there has been a review, and that if lessons are to be learnt, they are being learnt.
Thank you. Can you just give us a time scale on that? Have you been given a time scale?
So I'm sure my colleagues here will be much better at answering that, but my understanding is that review is taking place this month. I don't know how long it will take to reach conclusions, and for there to be a high-level conclusions that are appropriate for public consumption.
Assistant Commissioner, are you able to give any more on the timing of that?
I'm afraid I don't have any more information at this time. As you'll appreciate, it will be a multi-agency review, and whilst we'll be looking in detail at the policing operation, the policing was one part of ensuring an effective celebratory event. Mm-hmm. So we will be working with others and doing that, of course, as soon as possible.
Now, I have been talking with quite a few of the people who were arrested on the coronation day. I've been have spoken with one of the Night Stars, and learned about what their job is. They hand out bottles of water mainly and give people directions to get to the bus, to catch a night bus home. They do give out bottles of water. They sometimes give out slippers and vomit bags to people. They do carry rape alarms in their anti-spiking kits that they've been given relatively recently to carry, but actually have never given out one of those anti-spiking kits, so they've never actually given out a rape alarm to anyone. So I think that the question that I think many people have is there was an idea about a growing intelligence picture, which kind of caused there to be concern about, I understand, paint rape alarms and incursion onto the route. And is this this growing, a growing intelligence picture isn't necessarily actual evidence, and I just wonder what double checking was done of this growing intelligence picture to back up the actions that were taken.
Thank you, Chair. And I think probably important to give a little bit of context, and then I may ask my colleague DAC Delican to help in terms of the detailed answers you're seeking. But this was the largest security operation the Metropolitan Police has ever led, including the deployment of 11,500 officers and staff and volunteers from across the Met. Over 1,200 colleagues who joined us from the UK and overseas, 6,500 military ceremonial troops and over 160 horses, working with almost 9,000 stewards. So a vast operation over a large part of central London. And you'll appreciate the world's eyes were on us, and therefore it would have attracted those who may have sought an opportunity to cause disruption. But also the vast majority of people we know were coming to celebrate the coronation and to have a wonderful time. And we took our role in ensuring their safety and security, in allowing the event to go ahead, and also, we take our role to facilitate peaceful protest as appropriate very seriously as well. In addition to that central event, there were over 1,800 local community events taking place, whilst we ensured that we were still able to provide policing services across London, responding to 999 calls, and we're really grateful for the support we had from volunteers and all of our officers across the whole of the Met in ensuring, and the staff as well, who ensured a safe event. We did take, over those 3 days of the coronation, around 24,000 emergency calls, with officers and specials deployed to many of them. So a large event. The operation was many months in the planning, and we were working closely with others. And I think what I would say about an intelligence picture, of course, intelligence is not evidence, but the way that we work and we operate is that we have to respond swiftly to a developing intelligence picture, and it may not always be feasible or practical to ensure evidence before an arrest is made. That, under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, an arrest is made on the basis of reasonable grounds. Now, of course, that might depend on the nature of the offence that's suspected and whether it is an arrestable offence or an offence for which people must be found committing. But and of course we will then always act swiftly to ensure that we have, the veracity of that intelligence and that information when we make steps. So, and in addition to that operation that ensured the safety and security of the members of the public coming to see a wonderful celebratory event, there were 312 of the world's leaders and dignitaries in the area, being protected by 800 close protection officers. There were no practical alternative processional routes within central London. It's not that we could have, taken contingencies with others and quickly diverted a ceremonial route. We were quite limited, and therefore our actions would have been according to the options available to us to balance the rights of individuals seeking to protest with the rights of the vast majority who came to watch the coronation, and predominantly for us to ensure the safety and the security of the event. But Adi, are you able to assist on the specific questions?
I can. I would go. I'll start by saying that the intelligence was significant enough and worried us enough that senior sort of colleagues were briefed late on the Friday night into the Saturday, and I think I suggest that senior political colleagues were briefed on the detail of some of the details of the intelligence, just to show the significance. I would go as far as to say that we were deeply concerned that for people's safety and security within the coronation procession route as well. And hence we had a command team on that night. So you talk about what was there to check and make sure we check. We had a gold commander who was very senior level, at my level, who was in the control room. We had a silver commander who was a very senior level public order commander in the control room, checking and double checking. We had our intelligence teams working significantly through the night just to make sure that we could keep everyone safe and secure. And if you put that against the backdrop of our late Queen's Platinum Jubilee, where 3 people managed to get onto the procession route, and with a total of 12 tried, and really this was a real and credible concern for us that caused us to act in the manner that we acted, to make sure that people were safe and secure.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the Night Stars were trying to make it clear who they were, make it clear that they were volunteering on a scheme that was funded by the Home Office and in collaboration with the Metropolitan Police and Westminster Council. They're volunteers helping people out on a night out. Are you concerned that those 3 people spent the night in a custody suite in a prison cell?
Now, of course, we want to understand the detail of what happened, and those individual arrests and the circumstances surrounding them will be fully explored in our debrief process. And we will, you know, if we've got things wrong, we will apologise to individuals affected, and we'll work through that. But also, you know, officers, we trust our officers to make decisions on the ground, often with the circumstances they face and on the basis of information and intelligence available to them. And they will make inquiries to, you know, validate the information they hold, but also they will sometimes need to make very fast-time decisions to ensure that they're, you know, carrying out their duties to ensure the safety and security of an event. Now, that might mean that has implications for individuals, but we will work through all of that. And of course, people who carry out volunteering roles and support us in the security and safety of London are really important to us in the Met. And if there is more for us to learn from those events, then of course we want to learn. But of course, we want to support our officers who've made difficult decisions in challenging circumstances on the basis of credible information and intelligence that suggested a threat.
Mm-hmm. I now want to move on to a group of people who were arrested for wearing T-shirts and having flags while standing on the pavement on the Mall. I spoke yesterday with a couple of academics who were amongst that group of arrested people. They described that they wanted to take part in a legal protest, that they thought the King would be sympathetic to raising the alarm about the climate crisis. They were on, as I say, on the pavement, on the Mall. They were wearing T-shirts and they had small flags with them. They were under the impression that that came within the framework of legal protest. They found themselves suddenly surrounded by TSG officers, and they were put into handcuffs. And once they'd been put into handcuffs and led to the edge of the crowd, they were read their rights. They were searched, and it was found they were wearing Just Stop Oil T-shirts underneath their coats and hoodies and whatever. And the police said they had intelligence that they had paint, rape alarms and lock-on devices, but they didn't have any of those things. None of those things were found on that group of 12, 13 people who were arrested. Now, they were initially arrested for prevention of breach of the King's peace. They were then later rearrested on conspiracy to obstruct the public highway, and then even later, when they got to the police station, they were rearrested for conspiracy to cause a public nuisance, which is a rather more serious charge. Do you have anything to say about the way that what they were being arrested for kept changing? I mean, it's just in terms of the confidence of Londoners that their rights to protest legally are being upheld. It is really important that we understand, you know, what was happening there.
Thank you, Chair. We were very clear in policing the operation that we must consider balancing people's human rights with the heightened security context they were facing, the number of public attending this occasion, and therefore, you know, our threshold and tolerance for disruption might have been lower than if we were dealing with other events. But we were very clear that we were not banning protest, and in fact there were a significant number of people involved in protest, peaceful protest throughout the coronation event. At one point, a large group of Not My King supporters held a large and noisy protest in Trafalgar Square, with satellite groups at other locations, around 400 people involved in that. It was only when that increased to around 900 people marching around the footprint that it began to cause public safety issues, and we needed to intervene. In terms of the the information available to officers, because these were fast-moving events, and you'll be aware that we've seen in the past people on the Mall wanting to get into the route, and when you're talking about 650 military horses that they're not like police horses that are trained to have petrol bombs thrown at them, people screaming around them, and lots of noise and disorder. They are military horses that might be trained and exercised differently, and you might have seen the footage of just one of those horses startled in Parliament Square, and the catastrophic impact of people injured as a result of that. Now, that wasn't anything to do with protest, but of course we were very conscious of public safety and the safety of anyone, even anyone who might have themselves tried to get onto the Mall or into the event. And the information available to officers as they police this fast-moving, dynamic situation will have changed. And therefore that might have changed the grounds for arrest and the reasonable cause they had to take action. So I can't answer for those specific events. Chair, you've had the benefit of speaking to individuals.
Of course.
You will have heard their account of what's happened. We will of course look at the broad picture as much as we can in our review, and we'll be speaking to officers. We'll look at things like body-worn video, and we'll look to understand and seek to understand fully what's happened in all of those events. But
yes, I mean, I think that the review of your body-worn video will be really important. I mean, these were people who were wearing T-shirts with the slogan on. They were carrying small flags, but they were standing on the pavement, and they were pulled out and arrested, and that's a fairly scary situation to have happened, and it makes Londoners that we have a proud history of protest in London. People have protested about all sorts of things. It's almost like going out for a big long Sunday walk in the countryside, doing a march through London on a big organised protest. But it is, if people are being arrested because they've got a T-shirt on, it's and they're carrying a small flag, that has a pretty chilling kind of weight on Londoners who might want to protest.
As I said earlier, Chair, there were many hundreds of people involved in peaceful protests throughout the coronation events itself who were not arrested. The arrests were a very small number in comparison with the tens of thousands of Londoners who came along to enjoy the celebratory event, and officers will have been balancing the information and intelligence available to them, their very clear considerations of safety of the general public and security of a very significant event, with the information available and the steps taken to make arrests. And of course we'll review each of those individual arrests.
Well, I hope you do, because these people, there was no Just Stop Oil T-shirt on display when they were picked out, so they were clearly picked out for some reason. These are people who had, I mean, one of the people I spoke to yesterday had never been arrested before, had partaken in protest, but it's, you start wondering, is it that if you have protested about climate change, that you are more likely to get picked out by the police and arrested? That starts to have really worrying implications. And there was one other thing that I was told yesterday about the arrest, which will come out in the body-worn footage, I'm sure. One of the people arrested had her bank card, and the officer asked what her name was. She said, "I'll give you my name in the custody suite," and they said, if you don't give me your name, you're going to be arrested for handling stolen items. And that is, again, is a really worrying way of interacting. Now, of course, they could have told me something that didn't happen, but they know that there will be body worn of that interaction. And it is really worrying that that kind of intimidation appears to have been used.
Chair, as I've said, our officers all expect to justify their actions, particularly when, you know, the process of arrest and detention is subject to the law, but also independent review and regular review. So, of course, we will look into those matters. And I think, as I've said, you know, you mentioned climate protesters. I think if you just watch the news this week, you'll see that we take robust but proportionate action when it comes to disruption across London. But we make very few arrests, and those arrests are proportionate to the level of disruption to the wider public in London. So we work incredibly hard to balance people's rights. We don't focus on particular groups, and we try to be, you know, incredibly equitable in our use of the legislation available to us, but also to balance the rights of the public. And in the coronation, we had the additional complexity of security, a fast-moving event, and, you know, real concerns about the safety and security of that event and the public attending. But I don't know if my colleague wants to add more around those particular issues.
Yeah, Chair, if I may, it may interest the panel to know that, that there is still a significant investigation ongoing following the number of arrests that were made during the coronation. I think 64 in total, of which 42 people are still on bail, to which there is an investigation going on. So we're limited in what we can say at this particular point in time. And coupled with that also, there are some civil actions being taken against us, as well as the threat of possible judicial review. So we will still have to explain ourselves. And once we come to the conclusion of all of those, I suppose we probably might be able to say a little bit more. I take the point that you raise around people being arrested for just wearing T-shirts. I wish to reassure the panel that that is not the case. We talked about the existence of credible intelligence that caused us significant concern around the safety and security of those that may well be coming to the coronation and within the coronation footprint itself. It frustrates me so slightly that I couldn't share all of that intelligence with you, but we took. What I want to reassure you is that we took and we will continue to take proportionate action that is bound within the legal framework that allows us to do those things. And as my Assistant Commissioner said, that in the course of time, if we find that there are some flaws in that, then we will come out and say so. Embedded within policing is a real tradition of briefing, debriefing and reviewing and learning lessons. And that process has already started. It started the night after the coronation. I believe it's on the 12th or the 14th, and I get my dates right for you. There is a partnership debrief that will take place, and there will be subsequent other internal debriefs. When you combine all of those together, we will take some learning from that. I've yet to see a perfect operation. There is always something to learn, and I'm sure there are some things that we learn. But now is not the right time to start to go into that, if that is okay. Okay,
so the high level reporting of that review, those lessons and learnings will
come in due course.
You will come out in due course.
Excellent.
Thank you. I have one more question before I move on to Assembly Member Devenish, which is just about the use of live facial recognition at the coronation. I understand there was a watch list of 10,000 people used at the coronation, and I just wonder, that 10,000 people, there you are clear that there was a reason that they could be present at the coronation for all 10,000 of them. It seems a very big watch list. The watch lists in the past have been a few hundred, and apart from the sort of recent deployments in Camden and Islington, where you had a watch list of around 10,000 as well. So yes, can you just talk a little bit about the thinking behind that?
Thank you, Chair. I think we may need to come back to you with a little more detail on this. So my understanding is that the watch list was formed from those whose attendance would raise public protection concerns. Now, that would generally be those who might present a threat to public safety, people who might be wanted for very serious offences of violence or sexual offences, or that we might have concerns regarding the threat that they present to the wider public. But I don't have available to me the criteria that we used for that watch list. So I think to be accurate for the committee, I will take that away and respond in writing if I may.
That would be very much appreciated. Thank you.